So the elections were what now? November 7th or 8th? What was the date of the elections? 6th? November 6th. And now it's November 16th, 10 days later, and we still don't have the results of key elections in Florida. Why? Because it looks like at best they were incompetently run, at worst fraudulently run in certain counties like Broward County and Palm Beach County. In the case of Broward County, election results needed to be posted in a timely way immediately after the election. That was not done. The senatorial candidate for the Republican side, Recount, sued, and the judge ruled in his case that the Broward County official, Ms. Snipes, and the election officials in Broward County, Florida, which is heavily Democrat, were in violation of the law, state law, and the Florida Constitution. So many people say there's no evidence of fraud. Well, when election results are not being timely posted in violation of law and the Constitution of Florida, that is evidence of fraud. Now, this is not the first time Judicial Watch has investigated Broward County or Palm Beach County. In fact, back in 2000, during the Bush versus Gore fight in Florida, Judicial Watch was front and center. It was Judicial Watch that came up with the idea of using the state Freedom of Information Act laws, the Sunshine Laws in Florida, to gain access to the ballots that were at dispute. So as a result, many folks said, well, we want to gain access to that. And it was Judicial Watch who took the lead in doing its own audit and investigation of Broward County and the other counties and trying to figure out just how many votes would have been given to one party or the other if the votes had, if these undervotes, so-called undervotes, were counted as Vice President Gore wanted to do. So we said, well, we'll do an audit ourselves and we'll figure out what went on. It's not going to change the outcome of the election, but it would provide a historical record. Well, we did find that the records, the ballots that they've been counted, would have allowed, again, President Bush to win still. So the left pretends that Florida was stolen from them and the election of 2000 was stolen, and it wasn't. Judicial Watch proved that. But we also saw that in Broward County there was evidence of fraud because there were ballots that were oddly marked. We could not, using Broward County voting machine that was provided to us, imitate those markings. We also found that Broward County, in counting undervotes, and this is important as Broward County continues to do a recount, at least a manual recount of ballots that were rejected by their machinery, Broward County started evaluating undervotes one way, and then midstream changed their way of evaluating the ballots in a way that was more liberal and more helpful to Vice President Gore. So we've seen this game before. Evidence of fraud and mismanagement in Broward County. We have other evidence of fraud and mismanagement in Broward County. They couldn't get these votes in, the recount votes in just this week on time. And if they had did that, they would have given 779 votes to Rick Scott, as I said, the governor who's running for the Senate seat there. Isn't that interesting and curious? Now, Judicial Watch has a team in Florida right now monitoring these issues, looking for opportunities related to investigation and litigation. So you can trust us, we have a team on the ground. We also had folks out in Arizona. My colleague Chris Farrell was there with my colleague Mark Spencer, asking questions about what was going on in Arizona. It turned out that it looks like any issues of fraud weren't pursued by the Republican Party, but Judicial Watch was asking questions. Because we're not interested in necessarily making sure one party wins over the other. I mean, that's not what we do. But we want to make sure that the elections are run fairly and cleanly. And one interesting piece of information we obtained was from the Maricopa County election officials was that I think it was 1,700 of the 140+ thousand new registrants between the dates of January 1st and September 25th of this year were aliens. They provided alien registration numbers, meaning they were not eligible to vote. Now, I don't know if those registrations were cast aside or allowed to go forward or rejected, But we do know that, that aliens tried to register to vote, which is contrary to law. About 1% of the new registrations in Maricopa County, which is, I think, the most populous county in Arizona, it's essentially the Phoenix area, were aliens. You know, that's an indication of attempted fraud, at least. And so, again, it's Judicial Watch that's getting this information out there. So I don't know what's going to happen in Florida. It looks like the numbers are holding up in terms of Governor Scott eking out a victory and Congressman DeSantis eking out a victory in the governor's race. And in Georgia, there's other issues as well. The losing candidate for governor is getting friendly judges who, in my view, are lawlessly changing the rules after the fact to help this candidate try to gain the votes necessary to win or get a runoff. This is why Judicial Watch's election integrity efforts are so important, because what Judicial Watch tries to do is make sure the rules are clear, that there's integrity in the elections, that we've got voter ID, we've got a process that protects the rule of law and the integrity of the vote. And when you have judges come in after the fact, when you have this crazy idea of tons and tons of absentee ballots, which is a recipe for fraud and confusion, or provisional ballots, another recipe for fraud and confusion, it undermines the confidence of the American people in the election outcomes. And in Florida, I don't know what's going to happen. But one thing you should know is that the check on fraudulent elections, at least at the federal level, ultimately are the House of Representatives and the Senate. So if a senator gets into the Senate and the House under the Constitution, they make the decision as to who sits. So the state may certify a candidate as winning, for instance, a Senate seat, but the Senate may look at that race, see evidence of fraud or other misconduct, and choose to seat someone else, the losing candidate, or they could declare the seat vacant and there'd be a new election. So that's the ultimate check under the Constitution. Obviously, the court should appropriately behave in the meantime, but it doesn't matter how it all pans out with the courts and Ms. Snipes in Broward County. The Senate is the ultimate check. So I don't know how it's going to turn out, but your Judicial Watch is on the ground in Florida trying to make sure things are being done right, and we'll call it as we see it if things go wrong, and this is just the beginning of our investigations. You know, what happens is that when you have situations like this, everyone moves away. The race is decided one way or another, and everyone moves away or goes on and forgets what went on. Judicial Watch doesn't forget. We're going to keep on asking questions and try to figure out what went on in Broward County and Palm Beach County that caused so much chaos and concerns about fraud in this key election race. We can't, you know, we tried to focus on this 20 years ago or 18 years ago. There's a video of me making a press conference 18 years ago about this very issue of concerns about fraud in Broward County. 18 years ago. And the more things change, isn't that interesting?